Welcome to Bigfoot Society. If you have Bigfoot activity to report from the same areas discussed in this episode, please reach out to me directly after this episode. And if you'd like to be on the podcast to discuss a personal Bigfoot encounter, please reach out to me directly at bigfootsociety@gmail.com. Do you wish there was more Bigfoot Society to listen to every week? Well, there is now. If you become a supporting member over at Patreon, you get a special members-only episode every single week on Wednesdays, and sometimes even more episodes. Head on over to patreon.com/the Bigfoot Society. And now let's get on with the show. All right, Bigfoot Society, I've got the privilege of talking to Amanda today. Amanda is an individual I got connected to over on the TikTok platform. And she had an interesting experience during her childhood down there in southern Illinois. So welcome to the show, Amanda. How's it going today?
It's going very good.
Yeah, it's a nice one out. It's starting to get warmer, and at least up here in Iowa, we're starting to have a good time. We'll get to the 50s, so can't complain. But Amanda, I'm going to go ahead and let you take the mic here and bring us back to when you experienced this sighting during your childhood.
Okay, sounds good. I was a small kid, about 9-10 years old. I'm 48 now, so this was a long time ago. I haven't really openly told my story. You know, people think you're crazy when you talk about things like this. But yeah, like I said, I was about 9 or 10 years old, and I was staying the night at my aunt and uncle's house in Brownfield, Illinois. It's in Polk County, Illinois, very southern. Kind of, cornfields, wooded area. They live kind of out on a farm, so we were kind of very rural. But anyway, I don't know what time of night it was, but it was summertime because the corn was high. I was asleep in bed, staying there with a friend, and she was sleeping over there too. And I don't know, I woke in the middle of the night for no reason. I got a hot flash, something. Anyway, something woke me. So I crawled out of bed, and I actually got down on the floor and pulled the blinds up and opened the window without even, paying any attention. And so it was just me and the screen. And then I happened to look up, and it was actually staring back in the window at me. That was pretty traumatizing. I don't remember features of its face. It's like I really just focused on its eyes. We were kind of eye locked there for a little bit. I think I was so terrified, no sound could come out. It had blue eyes. It was, I don't know if it was like a whitish, grayish. I mean, you could tell what it was. It was definitely like a Bigfoot. And I don't know how long I was there, but it felt like forever, staring eye to eye with the Bigfoot. And finally I was able to, come to my senses, and I kind of just slapped the girl in the bed with me on the leg, and she woke up and screamed. And it kind of began to start walking away from the window. And we were on one end of the trailer. Mind you, it was very set high, how trailers are, one end will be lower and one is high up on the blocks. So, it would have to be pretty tall to look in the window eye to eye with me. But we ran to the other end of the trailer, and my aunt and uncle both woke up, and, they saw it as well. And by that time it was running away, and my uncle actually shot at it because we were all terrified. So, I mean, that's kind of the story, but, there was 4 people in the home that saw it that night.
That's incredible. So let's see, I'm trying to do some quick math here. So this was in the 80s, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
Probably about 85.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Now, I mean, that's a thing that would never leave you. It's probably affected your sleep many a night.
I'm scared to death of windows to this day.
Yeah. Wow. So how close, ballpark, would you say you were actually to it, and you face to face?
I could hear it breathing. I mean, I was pretty close. I would say, within a foot.
What did its breathing sound like?
I mean, it just, I mean, it didn't sound like heavy breathing. I mean, it just sounded like normal breathing, but it was loud enough I could hear it. But I don't know, maybe it was just as scared as I was. I don't know.
You said that your uncle actually took a shot at it. Do you know
Yes.
if he had hit it at all?
I don't think so. I think he was more just trying to scare it off. I don't think he like actually aimed at it. You know what I mean? More of a shot in the air. And it ran like a man. You could see it on it. You know, its elbows were bent running. I mean, it looked like a person running, but, you know, obviously it wasn't a person. It ran straight into the cornfield because the cornfields are all around their house, you know, and the corn was really tall at that time. So it ran into the cornfield, and that was the last we saw.
So you actually saw it run away.
Yes, we saw it run away.
Okay.
We were all at the door because we were terrified, you know.
My goodness. Did you notice anything strange about the way it was moving when it was running away?
No, I just remember that I was thinking, I thought, is that a dressed up person? But, you know, I knew it wasn't because I looked in its eyes, you know, and you could tell that was its eyes, you know, and they were blue. It actually had really pretty eyes, and I felt, even though I was scared of the unknown, I didn't feel threatened. Do you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that is just one thing I really remember, but I don't know if I was so locked on the eyes, I don't remember anything about the rest of the face.
Were you able to get any emotion from the eyes when you were looking into them?
Yeah, I think that's what I mean. I think it felt like I saw like curious and I don't know. I just felt not threatened by its eyes. It seemed friendly.
Absolutely. What happened the next day after this?
I couldn't tell you.
Okay.
Don't even remember.
Gotcha.
I suppressed it for a long time because I don't know. I guess I don't know. It was very traumatic, and you know, I finally spoke to my aunt and uncle about it. You know, many years later, and we discussed it, and then I was like, oh my gosh, that was real. I guess I made myself believe it was a dream, or tried to push it back in my mind, or
How did that affect you when you actually realized that, yeah, that, I mean, that was a real thing? There's 3 other people that, or my aunt and uncle also saw it. I mean, that would be very validating for me.
it was, you know, because I mean, I had told the story to a few people, like my husband at the time, and they would laugh at me, and I was like, you know, it's not funny. I'm traumatized. You know, but I think it's an incredible thing that I got to see, that I don't know if anybody else will ever have the same experience I did that close.
It is it's a rare occurrence to be that close, for sure. It was a very rare thing. Did you smell anything out of the ordinary that night?
Not that I remember.
Okay. Would you ever hear anything out of the ordinary around that trailer?
Not that I remember either.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. And then just another question, and I realize that you were very young at the time, so it's
Yeah.
totally understandable. And the other thing is, you go through something that is so traumatizing as this. I mean, it's no wonder. Probably your mind has blocked most of this, I'm guessing.
That's what my son told me. He was like, Mom, you need to go do the hypnotherapy and, you know, bring back some of that suppressed stuff. And I was like, no, I really don't want to.
Yeah, I was
I
actually.
don't really want it. I don't want the experience.
I was going to bring that up next, you know, but you got a point too. It's like, you bring it back, but do you really want it back? You know?
Right.
Your brain blocked that for a reason, I think, maybe to save you from some stuff.
Maybe.
The other question that I wanted to throw in there was, would you ever see anything on the property that was out of place, like animals that were left around that weren't alive. Also, maybe trees broken, weird things like that.
Well, I wasn't there all the time
Mm.
because it was my aunt and uncle, so I probably couldn't answer that question either.
How did this affect you the rest of your life concerning the Bigfoot topic?
Well, I mean, when you have an experience like that, it's just you don't really like to tell many people because,
Mhm.
I mean, everybody thinks you're crazy. So, I guess it's just a traumatizing experience that I've only told to, a select few people that I'm close with and trust, or I can talk about with people that know they've seen it too. There's been a lot of other people that have seen it in the area around the same time. I know I've heard a lot of stories from the same area.
That's interesting. So, were these similar to what you experienced, or were they kind of different encounters?
Um, uh, Somebody saw it running down the road like a man, and another person had said that it was in their kitchen that was right off their garage one night.
Oh, well, it actually got in their house.
Yes, yes. And this was right. It was like the next house, the next farm up from where my aunt and uncle are.
Oh boy, that is very concerning. I mean, because that's a whole nother level once it gets to the point when actually inside the residence there's not that blocker anymore. Man, yeah, that
Yeah,
can really turn interesting. Was that after your encounter or before?
I'm not sure, but I remember, when we discussed it at a later date, then, people started kind of telling their stories as well. And yeah.
From what you remember about these stories, sometimes you have, multiple sightings in one area and the Bigfoot is described as it was white, or was there any description about its physical appearance that would make you think it might have been the same one going around, or do you think there could have been maybe multiples?
I think I don't, it could have been either, but I wanted to say maybe probably the same. And I look at it as white, and I wonder myself, well, maybe it was older or grayish, because of the other people that were around the same time. It also said that it, was like a whitish color.
Hmm. I do want to point out as well. So Brownfield is inside the Shawnee National Forest.
Yes,
Okay, gotcha.
yes, it is.
Have you?
Very rural area.
Yes, I mean I've never been down there. It's on the list to check out, but just everyone I talk to around that area, it sounds very intense, especially the Garden of the Gods area. I don't know. Have you ever been up to that area?
I have. Yes, it's probably about an hour away from where I'm located, because I still live in Southern Illinois. So.
Okay, gotcha. Wow. Did you ever have anything out of the ordinary happen in that area?
No, I really haven't. I mean, I hear things in the woods all the time. We have heard things behind the house we live in now, and it would sound like trees breaking. My kids always tease me, "Mom, the Bigfoot followed you," and I'm like, "Don't say that." you know. So, but no, I really haven't experienced anything where I'm at now.
Sure. And, that is a thing. Sometimes people can make that joke, but it can potentially be a thing where, that could actually be a legitimate situation. But, if you've only heard tree branches snapping in the woods, I guess you might need a little bit more to be convinced that something
Yeah,
was happening there. Yeah.
most definitely. No, I really haven't had any experiences where I'm at now, and I've had no experience since I was, a small child. So.
Hmm. So the four people that were involved, and what? Wow. I'm gonna try to ask this, and we'll see if I can use it. Was anyone affected by this in a way that ended up really, really changing their life in a negative way?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Um, I don't speak to really talk to the other little girl that stayed there with me anymore. I haven't since we were small kids, but I still see my aunt and uncle, and I mean, we'll talk about it once in a while, but we really just, it's something we just really don't discuss.
Mm, makes sense. Um, so the different things you saw that day, you were able to look into its eyes.
Yeah.
Actually, there's a clarification I need to make about the eyes. Were there any whites to the eyes, or was it all one solid color?
Honestly, all I remember is that they were blue.
Okay. And that was the only detail you're able to remember about the face, correct?
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, the rest is just, I have nothing. I couldn't, just nothing on what the actual face was. I wish I did. It kind of bothers me that I don't, but for some reason, I just don't remember its face, just its eyes.
When you're watching it, so you're watching it run away, and
Mm-hmm.
so you have a view of the back of it.
Yeah.
Were you able at that point to see any hair color or hair length details?
Yeah, I do remember. It didn't have like extremely long hair, but it was longer. I remember seeing it flowing down from like its arms and on the back. And it seemed like maybe like the leg area had longer hair.
Gotcha. Did you notice anything about the length of the arms at all?
It seemed like it had really long arms.
Okay. Was there a part of it that seemed to not be covered by hair?
No,
Mm,
its whole backside was covered with hair.
okay. Did it seem to have a visible neck at all, or an area that would look like a neck?
I don't recall.
Mm-hmm. And I know these are super detailed questions for something that happened when you were so young, but I do like to ask stuff like this just in case there's things that come out. Um, do you remember anything about the shape of the head at all as you saw it run away?
Not as it ran away. I mean, I know that it almost kind of reminded you, like when I was staring in the face. I do remember that it was wide, but I think it was just because of so much hair, because the hair was really there on the head and like above the eyes. There was a lot of hair. I remember that on the face.
Gotcha. Is this something that you would want to experience again, or not a chance?
I probably would. I mean, being honest, now that I'm older, I didn't even know what that was when I was a kid. There was something scary looking in the window at me. So I think I would. I mean, I could take a picture this time.
Okay, so that's interesting. So why would be so I'm going to ask what would be the main reason that you would want to be able to have that kind of encounter again?
Proof to people that do not believe me.
Yeah, that's definitely a common thing you hear in accounts like this, is trying to get proof so that it sounds like you've had multiple times where just people do not believe you. But why would you choose to come on a platform like this where so many people would be hearing your story?
Honestly, my kids talked me into doing it. So they'd be like, "Mom, you have this really unique story. You need to tell it." People would be very interested because you had probably maybe one of the closest encounters ever with the Bigfoot. So, you need to tell your story. And I was like, okay. My daughter saw your show, made me come watch it, your podcast. And so I watched some, listened to some, and so I found you on TikTok, and now here we are.
That's great. I would say it is definitely one of the closest accounts that I've heard. I've heard, maybe could think of one or two others that are this close. Have you ever had any other things happen in your life that are out of the normal realm of things?
Not that I can think of. No, that was definitely the most abnormal thing that has ever happened to me.
That is really interesting. You know, I would say, oh man, I would say 90, 95% of the time we talk to witnesses, and there seems to be usually a common thread where it's not just them experiencing the Bigfoot, but then they go on to experience other things. You know, if it's like a shadow person or a ghost, or you know, just other weird things around their house, or you know. But yeah, that's very interesting. This was the one time in your life, you know, based on the things that you experienced that night. Would you classify what you saw as something that was more human-like, or ape-like, or maybe just something completely different?
By the eyes, it was, I mean, human-like, but I mean, by looking at it, definitely ape-like. So, but it definitely had more like human-type qualities, like watching it run and the way it moved, and you know what I mean, the connection of the emotional connection in the eyes.
Absolutely. Have you heard of any Bigfoot interactions happening in this area in current day at all?
I have not.
Hmm. Interesting. Well, it's an area I don't think it has ever come up, so that's why I'm definitely glad that you were able to reach out, because it kind of helps us that are really into this stuff, you know, figure out. We know that there's been tons of activity up in Garden of the Gods, but this Brownfield is kind of more southern, down by the Ohio River. So it's very,
Yes,
very
yes.
interesting.
It's actually in Pope County.
Amanda, I want to say thank you for taking some time out of your Sunday afternoon, and for sharing what you experienced that night. If you ever, you know, run across anyone else that's had any other encounters, you know, I'd love to talk to them as well. And I don't know if your aunt and uncle are ever interested, but you know, if they ever need anyone to talk to about what they experienced that night, I would be more than willing to talk to them as well.
Yeah, and they may be open to it, I mean, I can reach out and talk to them. So,
Yeah, I mean, if you wouldn't mind doing so, that would be great. I would greatly appreciate that.
yeah, yeah, I can reach out to them and see if they're interested in telling their side of the story. So,
Fantastic. Well, give your daughter a thank you from me for convincing you to come on the show. I appreciate that. So
uh, I will definitely tell her thank you.
very good. All right. Well, Amanda, thank you for your time today. Appreciate it.
All right, thank you.
Have a good day.
You too.
All right, Bigfoot Society. We've got the privilege of talking to Rodger today. Rodger is out there from the Lincoln City, Oregon area, and he was connected to the show by a mutual friend, Susie. Thank you to Susie. And he's coming on the show to share some really interesting experiences he's had over the years. So welcome, Rodger. How are you?
I'm doing great.
Absolutely. Well, you know, I'd say we had a little bit of technical difficulties, but I'm glad we're finally connected tonight. And you know what? I'm going to say let's make the best use of our time, and I'm going to go ahead, give things right over to you. Feel free to take us back to when this all started happening to you, Rodger.
All right. This started happening around 2015. Me and my girlfriend were taking our RV over the mountain pass out to Rose Lodge area, which is about 7-8 miles out of town. And we took the mountains that night. And we come to a T in the road, which I wasn't familiar with the T. They were doing work up there at that time. They made a new road. So we went down, we took the wrong way. We had to turn around and come back, and my girlfriend was following me. And I tried to stop at that T again to wait for her. And as I'm sitting there in my van, I see what seems to be what I thought was a flare, kind of zigzagging back and forth, coming down from the sky. I thought, that's kind of strange. And I look up on the bankside, and I see what was this? What I could only describe as a large male Sasquatch standing there staring at me. I actually couldn't see that well through the windshield, so I got out to make sure I knew what I was looking at, and sure enough, there was a Sasquatch standing there, snarling at me. Actually, he took one step off of that embankment and hit the middle of the road with one step, and then down the other side of the road, down the embankment, and moved right up next to me. And at that time, my girlfriend was coming up behind me, so I walked back to the car to tell her to not get out, just stay where she was at and follow me, and we get out of there. So, but I noticed that the Sasquatch was down the embankment quite a ways, and he was still probably about the level to where I was at as he moved simultaneously with me. I also noticed that he almost seemed to be floating. He didn't seem to be bouncing as someone would while they were walking, especially on an embankment. So my girlfriend pulls up, and I said, "Don't get out of the car." And she asked why, and I kind of stepped back, and I said, "Can you see that right behind me?" I said, "Don't freak out," and she kind of did. And at that time, well, just follow me, get back in the van, and follow me. Don't stop. We're getting out of here. So, and this thing had a snarl on its face, a mean look on its face, like it did not want me there. I was talking to it as I'm going back up to the door of my van because I was a little scared, and I wanted to make sure that the sound of my voice was a demeanor that was friendly. And I said, "Oh, you were awesome," because it was an awesome sight, very tall. It was probably about 9 foot tall, 10 foot tall, and this thing's demeanor on its look on its face got from an angry look to a curious look by the time I got to the front of my van. And I got in it, and we left. That was my first encounter. My second encounter, a few years later, me and a friend of mine, and I used to live with him and his parents up on top of Bear Creek Mountain, Bear Creek Road, and we went up to our old homestead just to check it out with our girlfriends. And we took, right in that same area, we took in one of the mountain roads back into town. And first thing I noticed is we were having to stop every once in a while and pick these trees up and move them out of the way of the road. And it was happening every so often. And at some point, we saw a little pull off in a little camp area, and we stopped there to take a break and enjoy the woods. And my buddy says, he looked at me, he says, "Rodger, grab your binoculars for me out of the car." I said, "Okay." And I grabbed my binoculars out, and I went to hand them to him. He says, "No, check it out. You see back the way we came, the treetops, the tree line." And I could see something moving around in the treetops. I looked in my binoculars, and I could see what seemed to be two apes jumping from treetop to treetop. He says, "Are those juvenile Sasquatches?" I said, I believe they are." And it dawned on me we had to move those trees out of the way to get back in here. We're like probably right in their territory. And these things are jumping from treetop to treetop. There's two of them, and they're shaking the trees. They're all excited. And it dawned, an idea just dawned on me at that time. We need to go because, and my buddy says, "Well, I want to stay for a little bit and check them out." And it was just getting dark at that time. I said, "Well, we need to go now. What do you think them little ones are probably all excited about? Maybe mom and dad bringing back a meat dinner?" Is about all I could think of. About that time, we heard whoop, whoop in between us and the little ones. And then immediately after, heard grunting noises, charging noises from above us, right above us, and rocks being thrown at us. So we got in the car and we got out of there. That was my second encounter, which I think was in the same area. Could have been the same, what I think is a clan of, or a family of Bigfoot. And the X's are what keeps it in mind, because I keep seeing these X's with branches. So, and then the third time, the last time, was up in Rose Lodge area, within a 10-mile radius of the same first two sightings. And at this point, my brother and his wife were up there, and they keep come to me and said they keep seeing some lights up in the woods up there, and they wanted me to come up and check it out with them. So we went up there that night, and then just before dark, and the first thing I see, we stop at one spot, and I see the X again, and I also see a tree down across the road. The tree appeared to be just ripped apart. That wasn't cut down. It didn't look like it fell down. It was just like the top of it was just ripped off from about 10 feet up. I thought it was very strange. And then I looked across the road from where the tree was across the road, and I see the X again. This seems to be a Bigfoot area, Frank. That was my brother's name, and he says, "What?" I said, "This is Bigfoot area here. This is that. See that X, and look at this tree. That's incredible." And he says, "What is this?" And I said, "Huh?" So we ended up going up to a spot just up from that they've seen the lights at, and it was just barely after dark. You could still see the outline of the skylight of the sky. So we stayed there for a few minutes, and there was some lights moving around down there, which I think I determined later was probably lights from the highway, which would be unusual to be able to see them from there. But I thought, well, what the hell? It must be some lights from the highway or something. And so we decided to head back down to that spot we were at earlier. And my brother's getting in the car, his wife's getting in their truck or whatever, and we're both armed, and he's putting his gun away. And I'm standing, I go to turn around, and I hear a large snap behind me. I turn back around, and I see the outline against the skyline. I see the outline of a humongous creature. A Sasquatch is what it looked like, and it looked like he had a tree part in each hand. Like he just snapped a tree in half. I thought it scared the heck out of me, and I turned to get in my vehicle, which is probably about 7 feet away from me. Just as I started to turn, my vision blacked out, and all of a sudden I was hit in the face, and it blinded me right off the bat, knocked me clear up against my vehicle. I rolled into my vehicle and put my gun in between my seats because I couldn't see at that point, and I didn't want to start shooting up, popping off shots at anything. And my brother says, "What's going on? What's up?" And I said, I'm hit. He had to pull out his gun and take a shot in the air to get these two things to leave. They take off. At that time, I'm like, "Get back in your rig and let's go." I'm just now starting to be able to see. When we get down the road, we take off quickly. We get down the road, and when I stopped to pull up next to them, I rolled down my window, and they looked at my face and said, "What happened to you?" I said, "I was hit." And I could feel the fur. I could feel the fingernail hit my nose, kind of give me a busted nose. But from my nose to the back of my ear on my right side of my head was completely bruised and bloodied. And my brother knew where I was standing. He said, "There's nothing around there that would have hit you." I said, "Yeah, there is. There was a Sasquatch standing right next to me, obviously. And there was one against the tree line." And he said, "Are you serious?" I said, "Yes, I'm serious. Not only with them lights up there you're seeing, but there's a family of Sasquatch up there. So I'd be careful going back up there." And we took off that night, and that had shaken me up quite a bit. I couldn't get it out of my mind. The more I thought about it, the more I was able to remember seeing the hairs as my eyesight kind of blacked out from obviously his arm and hand. Just kind of, I think it had backhanded me. And I can remember seeing that. I can remember feeling the arm and the fur and the fingernail that hit me on the nose. So I thought, well, let's go back up there. I want to check it out again. I want to see what I want to see it because I wasn't able to catch a full glimpse of it at that time. So we go back up there 2 nights later. I get out of the vehicle, and at this time we're down at the lower area where we seen the tree falling and the X. And I'm standing there. I get out of the truck. I light up a cigarette. And about 2 minutes after I've been standing there, I turned my brother's truck and I had the window open. I says, "Maybe we won't get anything going on tonight at all. I don't know." About that time, we hear pop, 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 pop. What sounded like gunfire to me. So I pull my gun and I'm up against my brother's truck, asking him, "Is that gunfire? Is that gunfire?" He says, "I don't know." Right about that time, we could hear the trees start to come down. These things, and I'm assuming it's a family of them, these things are snapping trees off like twigs, imitating the noise that we had made with a gun 2 nights before. I believe at this point I jumped in my brother's truck. Let's go, let's go, let's go. And as we drove out of there, I could still hear the popping noises and trees coming down. These trees are probably 150, 200-foot trees, but they're snapping off like twigs. I thought, whatever they have on Bigfoot isn't enough as far as what the strength of these things are, and the massive girth of them. The one that I've seen, the first encounter I've seen this thing within 12 foot of me, and I could see details of its face. I could see no neck. I could see the broad shoulder muscles and the huge broad shoulders and wide nose, and the eyes looked like they were probably 8 inches apart or better. And I could see the teeth. So it was a very, very interesting to me that I believe it was the same. I'm running into the same family of Sasquatch, and they may actually have remembered me, and it may be that's why they, slapped me in the face. But that was my encounters with Sasquatch. And every time I seem to go in the woods, within 20 minutes or so, I get signs of, Sasquatch being in the area or right there with me. I've only seen them a couple of times. The little ones were really, really, really interesting to watch and see them jumping from treetop to treetop. I think they probably send the little ones to the treetops when there's humans around. Would make sense. And the females was the one I believe that was doing the whooping, making the whooping sounds. And the male was obviously one that was making grunting noises and charging noises. So that is basically my encounter. My brother had no doubt after that, and after the last time we were up there and heard the snapping of the trees, he was absolutely convinced. And I told him that I'd had encounters before, but I never really saw them or was assaulted by them before. But I did my first 2 encounters. I did see the one big one. Second encounter, I seen little ones. And I told my brother, I think I'm running into the same family. And he says, well, you make a mistake. You said you'd get activity if you came up there with me, and you were right. So yeah, he had no doubt at that point either of what we were dealing with. And we went up there a couple of times afterwards, but we didn't stop. We just kind of drove past because it was pretty intimidating when they started snapping trees like twigs. And we haven't been back up there since. I want to go back up there. I want to go back up there with offerings, fruit, some kind of gifting, and see if I can get an exchange going on or something. I believe I know where their actually homestead might be. Of course, they may not be there now. I'm not sure. I want to go back up there and check it out, though. But it's a little scary. And that is basically my story.
Rodger, thank you for sharing. That is an incredible account. And you said that happened within the last 10 years?
Yes.
I definitely have a few questions to ask you, if that's all right, about accounts here.
Sure.
First thing I wanted to verify is, so you're saying that the individual that was with you did not see anything hit you, but
No.
you absolutely got hit by something?
Yes.
That's even scarier.
Yeah.
Did you, after that situation, did you have to go to a doctor to be checked out because of the damage to your face?
No, I didn't go and see a doctor or anything. It wasn't that severe. It was just bloodied and bruised. My whole right side of my face was, from the back of my ear to my nose.
How long did it take to recover from that?
Oh, at least 2 weeks. Because of the nose. I think it was the fingernail that hit my nose actually and broke my nose.
Was there a indentation or anything long lasting left by the fingernail or any other
Yeah,
markings
there was
left to
a
your face?
it actually cut my nose and actually broke the nose. So it was a little swelling and obvious that something had hit me. And my eye was black and my whole face was kind of bruised all the way back to the back of my ear.
So the it's even wilder to think of it from the viewpoint of the other individuals. So because they're not seeing the Sasquatch, but all of a sudden they're seeing you fly backwards and your entire face just get extremely bruised and your nose get broken. Is that how they described it, or
Yeah,
how did they describe it?
I don't believe he even saw me. But like he heard it. He was putting his gun away in his truck when it happened, and he heard me. I said, "Ow!" and heard me hit my truck, and so he popped back out of his truck and said, "What's going on? What's going on?" I said, "I'm hit. I'm hit. I'm hit." Uh, and I said, "They're right here." And he took out his gun and took a shot in the air from a shotgun. And at that time, I could hear both of them scramble and go through the woods, crackling and breaking branches and all the rest of it. I was surprised I was able to talk him into go back up there with me 2 nights later.
I mean, hats off to you, Rodger, because I don't, man, if I was in your situation, I don't know if I'd be going back up there. I mean, it'd probably be a lot longer, especially since that, physical hurt had just happened to you. But, what's the main reason that you would want to start a gifting scenario up there?
Well, I'm not sure if it's a connection that I have with these things or not, but it seems like every time I go in the woods, I can get a wood knock back. Or actually get them to come around. I don't see them very often or anything. I might catch a glimpse of something tall and hairy moving through the woods. But within 20 minutes of being in the woods, no matter where I'm at, it seems to be I get responses or I get an encounter. So I'm not sure if there's a connection or something with these things that I have, but I don't think they were trying to actually hurt me. I almost think maybe this was the same family of Bigfoot that I keep running into, and maybe they just were saying, "Well, this is one too many times for this guy." And gave me a backhand or something. I'm not sure, but
I mean,
it's very interesting, and I don't speak to it to a bunch of people or anything. Except from Susie, she had a shirt made for me that says "I got slapped by Bigfoot."
oh, really?
Yeah, I'm wearing it now actually.
Wild, dude. Is there anyone else that has reported similar things or sightings in the same area?
Not that I know of. There was for the casino, the expedition Bigfoot or one of those had come through, and I'd gotten tickets for me and my son, but my son had to work, so we didn't go. But I would have liked to have been there for their town hall meeting that they do and stuff, just to find out, if anybody else has ever seen these things around here.
Having a visual and being in close proximity, there's a lot of different people that have different viewpoints of what Bigfoot is. Through all this, do you have any thoughts about what Bigfoot might actually
I kind of rack my brain thinking about that. I look online now and I watch online at Bigfoot encounters and stuff, and a lot of them are people see, UFOs or lights in the woods and things like that. And now I'm seeing videos of these young ones coming out of trees to their mom and stuff like that. And so it's a wonder for me. Is there people out there that are experiencing this thing, and maybe even to the extreme that I am, seeing the little ones up in the treetops and stuff like that? 'Cause, that was probably one of the most inspiring things that I seen was the little ones jumping from treetop to treetop, all excited, and knowing that there's not any apes in the woods around here, that we know, except for maybe Sasquatch.
And I believe that's what you had said when you saw them jumping from tree to tree. It actually looked like a type of ape up in the trees, right?
Yeah, absolutely. My friend was standing next to me, and he got better eyesight than I do. So he's like, "No, look at these binoculars." He had me get them out of the car, and he says, "Check it out. Believe that? Am I seeing like?" And I said, "Looks to me like a couple of apes in the treetops." He goes, "Are those juvenile Sasquatches?" I said, "Oh my God, they are!" And we just moved a bunch of trees out of the way to get into here. We should probably go. Because I had heard rumors about Bigfoot even being eating people or something like that. At that time, I'm thinking, oh, good Lord, they're probably excited because mom and dad's gonna bring home meat dinner or something. So we got out of there.
Yeah, I don't blame you. Did you were you reminded of any particular type of ape when you look through those binoculars, or just ape in general?
Just ape in general, I would have to say, um, well, the smaller ones, I would have to say maybe chimpanzees. But that big one that I seen the first one I seen was a big male, I believe, and he looked. I guess the chimpanzee would be about the closest thing. I want to say ape. I want to say gorilla, because of the size and the wideness of the nose. The eyes were real wide, but the look on the actual face of it. Didn't remind me of a gorilla too much. No, nor did it remind me of a chimpanzee really. I guess because it doesn't have the roundness on around the mouth area, like a chimpanzee has. This had lips like a human, but a big broad nose, very broad nose, and very wide eyes. Very hard. The head was coned. It had a point to it. Um, the hair was very coarse, long and shaggy. The hair came down on his head, basically into his eyes and about halfway down the face. Um, and what else? Yeah, I remember about that one. Just the absolute size of it is just stunning. It's enough to make you stop you in your tracks and wonder what you're looking at. That's for sure. And my first feeling was to flee, to get the heck out of there. But he looked at me with this mean demeanor on his face, and uh, as I went to front of the van, he paced me all the way. And again, I noticed that he wasn't bobbing like a person would, especially on an embankment like he was on. And he just kind of smooth all the way with me up to the front of the van. And I was talking to him with a very gentle demeanor and telling him how awesome I thought he was. What a magnificent specimen I thought he was. In a real calm voice. And by the time I got up to the van, his face had turned absolutely curious and almost friendly.
That is just amazing. I think you'd mentioned that you'd also seen its teeth as well.
Yeah, I could see his teeth. I couldn't tell if he had like any fangs or anything like that. I couldn't tell if they were pointy or anything, but I could see the teeth. It was at nighttime, and that whatever was coming down in the sky that night, a flare. I'm not sure if it was shooting star or what, but it moved like a flare would, back and forth, and it was actually illuminating the area, so I could see him pretty clearly. Dark skin. Uh, the girth of this thing, he had no neck. It was all muscle around his neck area. Um, but just the stature of this thing was anywhere from 9 to 12 feet. He was just absolutely tall. I mean, I actually had to, when you come down on the road, I had to look up to actually, and he was within probably, I think the whole time he stayed probably within 10 to 12 feet from me.
That's extremely close, Roger. I mean, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It gives me chills even thinking about it. Yeah, it gets kind of my chest kind of going too, just on the heartbeat and racing and the adrenaline pumping. Whenever I think about it, that was the closest encounter I had up until the night I got smacked in the face.
Absolutely.
And I think I'm thinking maybe that those things were warning us because we were armed or something. Because they also 2 nights later they made mimicking sounds as if they had guns. I thought it was gunfire, and then I quickly realized that these things are snapping trees like twigs. Let's get out of here. They're showing aggression is what they're portraying there, and they're probably saying we got loud things too.
Yeah, and the thing is that you don't know if maybe they had a run-in with other humans that were armed with guns, and it was not a good experience at all. And so now when they see that, they're like, "Yeah, we gotta smack these guys around a little bit." You know what I mean? And
Right.
you
Absolutely.
never know. That's kind of me just theorizing, but potentially, you know, that sighting
Right.
where it was extremely close to you, and you could see its teeth. Would you ever want to have a sighting that close again, or is that something that you could live without?
Well, that close. Mm, as long as it had the look on his face as it did when I got in the van, and his demeanor wasn't, I think the last one I had when I realized that there was one within 10 feet in front of me. It was about the distance between the one that had initially snapped the tree into, and I turned around to heard a snap. I turned around. I could see the outline of it against the skyline. That right there scared me. And then when I seen my the eyesight just blackened out and whacked right in the face, I got when it hit my nose, I got the white light in my eye. It hit me that hard where it just I didn't see nothing but the white light at first, and I rolled over my van. I put my gun away, and I could feel this thing just right behind me. And that I don't want to have another experience that close. Now maybe standing on the side of the road as long as I was as long as I didn't, get that feeling of that demeanor that he had at first again, I'd be okay with it.
Yeah, I
I
don't
don't know.
blame you not wanting to have an encounter like that again. But no, I do want to just check. So after you've had these experiences, sometimes people have weird things start to happen at their home. Is that the case with yourself, or are things just staying in the woods?
They're just basically staying in the woods. I live in town in Lincoln City here, so I don't have too much going on in town.
Gotcha. That is good to hear. Do you have any advice for people that might find themselves in a similar situation where they're in very close proximity to them all of a sudden?
I do. I would say be nice to it. Talking as calm demeanor, um, uh, and just keep that thought in your head. Compliment them, whatever you have to do until you're able to get out of there. If they're that close, you're in danger. These things are, even for the thought of a Sasquatch and the size of it, there might be a paranormal something or other with them because snapping trees off like they do and pulling trees apart like they did, that is absolutely incredible beyond what I would think that an animal that size could do.
Hey, that's good advice. Is there anything else strange that happens in the same area?
Um, yeah, I have had encounters and still do have encounters with orbs.
So are there some times when you just encounter the orbs themselves?
Yeah, yeah. I don't really encounter the orbs with sightings of the Sasquatch or anything like that. And I see the orbs quite a bit. Uh, I go up to see a friend of mine up on the Siletz Highway, just a couple miles up the highway, and we see the same orb we've seen in the last 4 or 5 years now, go up and down the Siletz. And it comes off of a mountain, and it goes right past us about, I don't know, probably 50 foot up or so. Absolutely silent. We lived in an RV park up there, and it was summertime. First time we saw it, it was summertime, and there's all kinds of people out in the park. Even the owners were out there, and we were pointing it out to people. And that's when I realized that people that don't believe it, they won't believe it because we pointed it out to them. They're just, you see that? That's just right there. That's an airplane. No, look at it. There's no flashing lights. It's an orb. It's silent and it's right there. And it's an airplane. They have no thought of it at all. They just glance up and that's it. That's a little disturbing when people are like they don't want to know. Oh yeah, my first encounter was when I was a boy. I was about 13 years old. My dad had left me alone for like a couple of nights, and I actually I had heard some noise outside and looked out the window, and there was a Sasquatch standing there. I never told anybody this up until now because you didn't go to your parents about stuff like that back then. I called the police and told them that there was a man standing outside my house, very tall, very big man, and and I and actually knew what I was seeing, so I grabbed my dad's rifle and I had it pointed at him while I was on the phone with the cops. And about 10, the cops, there was a state cop, and they were stationed out in Newport, about 30 miles away. So by the time he got there, this thing was gone and everything. And they took me to a shelter that night. But that was actually my first encounter with a Sasquatch.
So you had pointed the rifle at them, but nothing was ever shot.
No, absolutely not. No, he didn't come any closer to the house. He was kind of poking out himself out behind a tree. And at first, I thought it was just a large person trying to get in the house or something, and that startled me quite a bit. So I called the police, and it was when I was on the phone with the police that I actually seen it. It stepped out from behind that tree and stood there and didn't move for probably 10 minutes. And I stayed on the phone the whole time, and I was telling the dispatch, this person is absolutely humongous. I'm scared to death. Please get an officer out here. I have a gun on him, but he's not moving. He's not leaving. I didn't tell them what it was. I just told them it was a man. And I couldn't tell my father. My father he wasn't the type of person to go for any of that kind of stuff. So I never said anything to him, except for that there was a person out there that night, because obviously the cops had talked to him when he came back.
So is what you saw when you were age 13, is it similar to what you saw when you were older, or was it a different look?
Actually, it was almost identical. The features of it, broad shoulders, no neck, except for that one seemed to have a silver kind of silverness to the fur, like he was an older one or something. But the height and everything, actually that one, I was shorter then, so I'm not sure. But that one actually, we had an outside light on the outside of a tree that was just right across from it, and I could almost judge that. We had that about 10 feet up into the tree, and it stood just about the same height as that. I think maybe just under, so about 9 to 10 foot. That thing had to have been.
Extremely interesting.
I would imagine with the forest around here being the perfect habitat for these things, there's got to be sightings of them here. There must be.
I don't know if it's on Jeremiah show or on Chronicles, but there was a guy from Otis. Jeremiah, was that your show he was on?
I've had people reach out to me about Otis before. It could have been. I think I know I've heard things about Otis when it comes to Bigfoot. I know there's a few people right now that are like, yeah, I emailed you about it. But
yeah, there's Otis and Rose Lodge area right outside of town here.
And that's the one they've been sighted, and that's the
That
one.
was actually, I seen something that said that was one of the first sightings recorded was in Nestwood Beach.
Yeah, and out in Pacific City and Tillamook, they're all in this area, the corridor. Yeah.
I have seen the prints in the woods. I hadn't seen them really during my encounters, but I have seen prints in the woods, and they're obviously Sasquatch prints. They're not bear prints. Yeah, I've seen prints quite a bit, actually.
Is this this area, is this considered the Van Duzer area?
Yeah, it's west of the Van Duzer Corridor. Yes, just and the last one where I got smacked, I was only a couple miles from the Van Duzer Corridor.
Okay. Makes sense now. Yeah, absolutely. I think it was a researcher I know named Ben who focuses on the Van Duzer area that was looking into Otis sightings. I
I
might
tell them
make
to go
him.
find that abandoned town back in there.
Yeah,
There's abandoned town back there. Yeah.
but yeah, I mean, I've heard there's a lot of things that go on in the Van Duzer corridor area that are
Right.
pretty weird.
Yeah.
I feel pretty confident that the sightings I see and the encounters I have, most of them are just encounters. I don't see them every time, but I can tell they're there. I know they're there. They they let me know they're there. I'm almost to the confidence of each time I go up there, I get an encounter. But I could almost take non-believers up there and almost guarantee that they within 20 to 40 minutes we would have some kind of an encounter. They would come around. All I have to do is really just kind of think about them, pretty much maybe a couple of wood knocks and next thing you know, where there's snapping trees going on, snapping branches going on around me, and in fact, after that, my brother and his wife and we get friends, and we go up in that area, and we would park up in there and just turn out all the lights off the vehicle, and these things were they seemed to be like popping right out of the bushes right at us, almost. But and they I believe they mimic lots of animals in the woods. Like one especially would be an owl. I believe they can mimic owls.
Are there examples where you've heard owl mimicry yourself?
Yeah, I've even got pictures on my phone of owls in the area that I take pictures of. I know I'm familiar with what they sound like, what their behavior patterns, and these things. When I hear an owl, when I'm having an encounter, um, I don't know if it's these things mimicking an owl or an owl letting these things, or letting the rest of the forest know that there's humans in the area or something like that. But there has been incidents where me and my brother both have heard owls, and we're certain that either the owl was letting something know that we were in the area, or or it was them themselves mimicking an owl. I do seem to, when I get encounters in the woods, I go in the woods and within 20, 30 minutes, I'll do some wood knocks or something like that. Because I'm interested now. I'm fascinated now. I want to know more. I want to know if there's people out there that seen little ones like I have, or, because it's frustrating when you don't want to talk to people about it because you're afraid of what they might think of you. So when I go up there, I hear, and one of the ways I know that they're in the area is I'll hear chatter. I'll hear talking. What seems to be usually a male and a female having a conversation. Not like a chat, it's just kind of like a conversation that you can't tell even what language really it is. But it sounds like people talking. You just can't quite hear what they're saying or what language they're speaking, and that's one of the most prominent things that I get when I'm up there and I realize that they're around. Is I'll hear a little bit of chatter going on between the two of them.
That's very, very interesting. Do you have any thoughts about do you feel that anyone can go to a certain area and have an encounter, or do you think you have to be, maybe prepared in a way, or
I'm not sure, but I think maybe that would be an interesting thing to actually investigate. That I can tell people, what I do to get my encounters to come around, and that's, I keep my thoughts very pleasant thoughts of them, and I'll even speak as if they're there sometimes, and I'll do some wood knocks, and then within 20 to 40 minutes, I start hearing the little chatters or wood knocks or um, you know seeing things in these little dark areas of the woods. You see these the shadows, pockets, and stuff like that, and then I've even seen a lot of what looks to be shadows, because he said they have dark, really dark. Their hair is really dark colored. Almost looks like a dark shadow or something sometimes. But you'll see the outline of them standing or peeking around a tree. You know, and when I see that, it's usually always looks like a dark shadow almost. So I'm really getting close to look as I can of it, because I don't want to say, well, there's something standing right there, and it not be something standing there, just be a tree, or So I'm very familiar with the woods around here and what it produces. It can produce some awfully intimidating looking tree stumps, things like that from a distance. So I'm always wondering if I'm seeing what I am seeing. I take binoculars every time I go into the woods now.
Yeah, that's something I noticed myself when I was on some forest roads in Oregon this summer. Is there's a lot of stumps out there that are pretty tall, and I can definitely see how I was doing some double takes myself. But you mentioned that
Yeah.
you've been talking to them as well. Is that you're talking out loud or in your head
Yes.
sometimes? Yeah, out loud.
Yes, and I'll do it in my head too if I just arrived or something and realize that they're probably not within a earshot of me. So I'll do some knocks, and then I will think about them, and I'll think about them in a very pleasant way. And I don't know if that has anything to do with them coming around, but that's what I try to portray onto them is I'm there in a friendly capacity, and I usually it's like, I think you're awesome. I think because they're just awesome animals. Um, so I kind of keep it that way, and that usually keeps them to coming around, but not so close like these last ones. That's when I'm more comfortable.
Fascinating. Do you have a plan then to start going out and to start gifting, or is it just it may happen in the next few months?
Yeah, I do actually. I don't really have a plan too much, but I want to go up there with Susie. Actually, Susie wanted to go up there with
I
me.
want to see one
She wants
from
to
a
see one,
distance.
yeah, from a distance. But I'm not too sure if I would go back up in that same area or want to have that close on the counter or anything like that without. I keep forgetting to bring some, gifting items up there, fruit or whatever it might be. So that's something that's been on my mind for a while. I want to go back up there to that very spot actually, and see if I can get some gifting going on, or come back the next day and see if there's any fruit gone, or maybe even set up a trail camera. Um, I know we do.
Well, I would say, definitely keep us in the loop with if anything happens when you go up there and maybe start gifting as well. I'd be very interested to know.
Yeah. Yeah, I might go up there and see if I can get my brother. He'll go back up there with me, I'm sure. And if we can get anything on recording too, I'd like to take a camcorder up there with us or something. See if we can get anything on audio, video, anything we can.
Absolutely. Rodger, it has been a pleasure talking to you tonight, and thank you for reaching out. Thank you to Susie for setting this up as well. Did you have any final thoughts that you might want to share about your encounters with Bigfoot so far?
Um, yeah, actually, just a warning, I guess. What I would be, I'd like to convey to people, your firearms. When I had my gun out, and we were there 2 nights after I got hit in the face, and these things started snapping trees off. I was standing there with my gun in my hand, and I looked down at my gun, and I felt like I was holding, you know, uh, like a needle, a sewing needle or something. Like I'm going to, because that's about how I felt. Was these aren't significant enough to, and I wouldn't want to have to hurt one anyways. Um, but I don't think the guns would have done us any good. These things are just too massive. They're too strong. They're too fast. And since then, when I go up in the woods, I don't carry my firearm with me anymore. If you can believe that. After that, I stopped taking my firearm with me.
It's extremely interesting, and yes, it's definitely, I would say, individuals. That's something everyone definitely needs to come to grips with themselves is, you know, what will be there. If they are going out,
Yeah.
are you going out with someone else? Probably telling people where you're going, some form of protection, but everybody does have their own their way of that.
Right. Right.
Rodger,
My brother on the other end, I'm sure my brother's going to want to take his firearm.
yeah, probably.
He's still freaked out about it.
I don't blame him, man. But both of you, thank you so much for hanging out with me for some time tonight and for sharing what you've experienced, Rodger. And I hope to hear back from you again in the future.
All right. I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Just want to take a few minutes to say thank you to you, all my listeners, for listening to the podcast. Please take a minute to help out the show by subscribing on YouTube, making sure you hit the bell so you don't miss any notifications, and share the episode on YouTube with a friend. Also, if you're listening to us on a podcast, thank you so much. Make sure that you're subscribed, share the show with a friend. Really, it's all about sharing the show wherever you can. If you've had a Bigfoot encounter related to the following or know someone who has, please reach out to me at bigfootsociety@gmail.com or pass on my email. Here's a list: the Subtle Lake area of Oregon, Rainbow, Oregon, McKinsey Bridge area, Sweet Home, pretty much that entire area, the north part, if you get what I mean. I'll see you back next time, listeners. Sasquatch Summerfest this year, July 11th through the 12th. It's going to be fantastic. July 11th through 12th in Green Waters Park in Oak Ridge, Oregon. And listeners, if you're going to go, you can get a 2-day ticket for the cost of one if you use the code BFS, like Bigfoot Society, but BFS, and it'll get you some off your cost. Priscilla was nice enough to provide that for my listeners. So there you go. I look forward to seeing you there. So make sure you head over to www.sasquatchsummerfest.com and pick up your tickets today.